Hello and welcome to Total Lore, our dive into Total War, with a particular emphasis on Warhammer story, thanks to the tyranny of my own personal biases. Last time we looked at Arkan the Black, and we raised a lot of exciting names for further discussion, most obviously Arkan's master, Nagash. And we also had some lovely comments making interesting requests, from Queek to Sigvolt to Vlad, which is why today we're talking about Malus Darkblade. So yes, sorry, but there is a good reason for this. I will eat my 8th edition rulebook if Malus Darkblade doesn't come to Total War Warhammer 2 at some point, and as a lesser penalty to reflect the fact that it's a slightly riskier bet, I'll eat my smaller, more digestible Dwarf rulebook if he doesn't come this month. Why? Creative Assembly confirmed in a recent blog post that the next Total War Warhammer 2 DLC will arrive alongside Norska's Mortal Empires update in May, and it would be a Lord's pack similar to the King and the Warlord from the first game. That means a few things. It means a bunch of new units to bring 2 armies closer to the rosters they have in the tabletop game, and 2 new legendary lords. Now, there are plenty of unused characters that could step up, and for those of you who want to see Lord Croak, believe me, I'm right there with you. But a High Elf versus Dark Elf pack fits neatly with the oppositional theme we've seen in previous Lord packs, and assuming that Warhammer 2 is going to get at least 2 of these Lord packs, so each of its races will get a go, then a Druchii vs Arcer pack is basically guaranteed at some point. And when, not if, a Dark Elf pack happens, I actually might eat something that's typically considered inedible if it's not Malus Darkblade. Creative Assembly would be mad not to do it, if only because the Dark Elves don't really have anyone else. The only other Lord in their 8th edition book is Hellebron, aka Angry Morathi, who is simply nowhere near as prominent as Malus Darkblade. So whence comes this stature? Why does he have so many fans? Malus's father was Lurhan, the military commander of the city of GRAEF. His mother was a sorceress named Eldire, whom Lurhan stole from under the nose of Malekith himself. Thus he was born a bastard and given the bastard name Darkblade, a little like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones, although that's pretty much where all similarities end. As a bastard, he didn't have all the advantages of his half-brothers, which left him with a pretty large chip on his shoulder, to say the least, and also forced him to get creative with ways to make his fortune. After learning to play the political game in GRAEF, a series of increasingly desperate schemes culminates in Malus's theft of an enchanted skull from one of his own half-brothers. That skull was a key to a temple in the Chaos Wastes, where there was supposedly a great power waiting to be claimed. Now, to say things take a turn for the worse for Malus around here would probably be the understatement of the century. This is the decision which wrecks the rest of his entire life, and elves are immortal, so that's not comfortable for anyone. That great power turned out to be the demon Tzarkan, imprisoned in the temple by 5 great sorcerers many centuries ago. Thus freed, Tzarkan proceeds to make himself at home in Malus's own body, and to claim his soul, which would make anyone angry, let's be honest. But Tzarkan offers Malus a deal. Gather the 5 artifacts needed to free me for good, and you can have your soul back. And by the way, you've got a year. And so begins a series of adventures in the finest traditions of pulp fantasy as Malus wanders around Naggaroth and the Chaos Wastes, yelling at his literal inner demon, getting angrier at all the fools who get in his way, and getting more desperate as his time runs out. Even better, he rides a Cold One, which is basically a Jurassic Park velociraptor on steroids, and its name is Spite. It's like a grimdark Conan the Barbarian, really, and it's chronicled in a series of no fewer than 5 novels, which are some of the best received Warhammer Fantasy stories so far. Now, we don't have the time to get too deep into all of that, and besides, you should read them. So here's a spoiler-free summary. He kills a lot of things, including minotaurs and even a dragon ogre. He overcomes and outwits all sorts of meddling fools who keep getting in his way and underestimating him. Anyway, long story short, on the last evening of his allotted year, a year in which he plumbs new depths of an already pretty deep well of hatred for basically everything, he gets all the artifacts together and he enacts the necessary ritual. Tzarkan is thus freed, and surprising no one, least of all Malus, he goes back on their deal, running off with Malus's soul. This leaves Malus literally soulless and thus unkillable, and he spends the next 10 years wandering around the Chaos Wastes and murdering everything, until he finds a sorcerer who claims to know where Tzarkan has wound up. Justifiably scared that Malus will just kill him if he gives up the location, the sorcerer has the map tattooed on his skin, thinking this will make him more valuable alive. Malus, however, gives not a single solitary and flays the map right off the sorcerer's back, feeding the rest of him to spite. He tracks Zarkan down and takes his soul back, tricking a minor chaos god called the Screaming Godchild in the process, like it's no big deal. Pissed at having been made Malus's bitch, the Screaming Godchild has his revenge in a big way, cursing Malus by putting Zarkan right back in his body. So, hilariously, after a year of hard work, killing lots of hard people, Malus is basically left no better off. He's right back where he started. Dispirited, crazier than ever, and still sharing his body with a demon he hates and who hates him right back, Malus returns to his hometown of GRAEF, where he now rules. So what might all this look like in Total War Warhammer? Well, logically, Malus ought to start near GRAEF in the Black Flood region, though since that's right next door to Malekith in Nagorond, Creative Assembly might decide that's too similar to an existing campaign. And since Malus has a noted history of exploring the entire world, they could realistically start him anywhere with some justification. Certainly, however, the Chaos Wastes have been his most prominent adventures, so perhaps they could pit him against the Chaos Tribes in the Ironfrost Glacier, the Iron Mountains, or the Aghol Wastelands. In terms of army abilities, it would make a lot of sense to lean into his constant hatred for everything, whether conferring the hatred rule on his entire army, or just on nearby units if that seems a bit strong. There's also plenty of potential to lean into his rich backstory when designing his quests, although it's notable that the Warp Sword of Cain is the only artifact that actually survives the ritual to free Zarkan, which means it's the only magic item that Malus has in the tabletop game. There, it ignored armor saves and let Malus reroll failed wounds, so expect armor piercing at least. Obviously, Spite should be his final mount, a big, nasty, cold one that doesn't suffer from stupidity and so won't derp around the battlefield at random. And then, of course, there's Zarkan himself. On the tabletop, players could choose to unleash Malus's demon, which caused him to gain permanent frenzy and a bunch of stat boosts until the end of the battle, although with the risk that he'd hurt his own troops while in the grip of his murderous rage. This could be easily replicated in Total War with a long cooldown active ability that makes Malus even deadlier in close combat, though with significant risk to your own troops. And there we are, there's your quick introduction to Malus Darkblade, who might be coming to Total War Warhammer 2 as soon as this month, most likely alongside some more units from the Dark Elf tabletop roster. I've got my fingers crossed for Doomfire Warlocks and Charybdises. I suppose there's a chance that the next Dark Elf legendary lord could be Helebron, who might make thematic sense to be added alongside the Sisters of Slaughter and Bloodrak Medusas, two other missing units. But I think I'm still personally betting on Malus, possibly to face Elithanar for the High Elves. But that's me. Who are you expecting? Maybe Helebron versus Alariel the Everqueen would make more sense for the next Lord pack. Are you a Malus fan? Have you read the novels? And who should we tackle next on this series? Leave a comment with your thoughts, give us a like if you found the video interesting, subscribe for more Total War and PC gaming content, and until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take care.